Yes. Brain's processing. Okay. Yes, so I've been continuing to do since we spoke last week on Friday. I've been just continuing to do cars. And honestly, it's been going I've been right there. I've been getting like 70%, 72%, which is like pretty good. Um
Mhm.
and honestly, I mean it's kind of like it feels nice to say that because it's like I feel like I'm consistently getting it.
Yep.
And a lot of days I'm just kind of like, wow, I feel so good. I don't feel like doing anything else. But I
Mhm.
mean, I should probably motivate myself to do more, but that's okay.
Yep.
Um, the only thing is though, timing is still around the same place that I was at. So like 18 to like it takes me 16 to 18 minutes to read and map it, and then another like 5 to 7 minutes
Mhm.
to do it. So yeah, timing hasn't really like
I mean, you
in
said that originally it was like 40 minutes, right? So
yeah, it was
that's,
40. It was,
it seems like that's what, cut in half. So yeah, so your timing's improved. So that's good. And
And I think another thing is I can't believe I'm saying this, but a
Mhm.
lot of the questions, like some of the questions I'm getting wrong is like actually silly mistakes, which is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
crazy to say. That's never happened to me. Like
yeah.
if I get something wrong, it's because I'm
Hmm.
like, oh wow, I genuinely didn't understand it the first time. But
Yep.
like it's like little wording things that I kind of misread because I feel a
Yeah.
little too confident or
Sometimes
whatever.
questions can be really nuanced with the language that they use. So that can
Mhm.
be that can be tough. Yeah.
So yeah, and I think another thing, and maybe we can work on today is I feel like sometimes like I'm able to get the main idea, but I get so boggled up in all of like the details of the passage
Mhm.
that I tend to kind of lose the argument in my head. And
Got
I
it.
continue to do that. And
Mhm.
honestly, like I mean, I know you've told me to screenshot your the work that we do here, but to be honest, I haven't really like exactly really looked at it
Mhm.
much, which is my mistake. But
Mhm.
um I definitely want to try to kind of work on that maybe today, like to do a philosophy passage. I've been doing pretty bad on the philosophy passages. Maybe we can pick out one on that and then try to do it again. Try to see if we can find those, like, so I can kind of keep track of those arguments. Because like by the time I finish the passage,
Yeah.
like it takes me like a minute or it takes me a little bit longer to like come up with everything. My brain's just in a weird
Hmm.
state of, well, what did I just read? Which isn't good. So,
Yeah, yeah. So it helps to you know, like as you saw like from last time, like understand everything as you read it. Like rather than like reading a sentence and then saying, okay, what did this say? You like read
mm,
and like word like per word, you're trying to understand what it's saying. Um, and you only go further when you understand that. So yeah, we could work on that stuff. And you said that there's issues about being able to differentiate what's important from what's not.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
tough.
it's hard for me to like for the most part when I check the main idea, most of the passages I get it right. If it's even better.
Yeah.
I still think it can definitely get better.
Mhm.
The only problem is like the arguments in the passage. I kind of just lose track of them.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
all the details.
yeah.
Okay.
And
You have yeah.
yeah, also before we start, I actually wanted to talk to you. I mean, I think we're planning to take the first full length next week on Saturday. And to be honest, I'm kind of thinking that maybe like I don't. I mean, I feel like we already have enough Cars content. We've gone through it so much. Then maybe I can like rewatch a video or something. But I'm thinking of not. I don't want to meet next Friday. So I want to see if we can plan out and like strategize about how I should go about the exam or what exam should I take. Um,
Wait,
and then
why,
we'll meet after the exam.
why don't you want to meet next week?
I just want to meet, like, I would rather, I feel like I want to like use that session instead, like after I take the exam. I feel like maybe I can just, because it's been really a lot of like cars passages I've done. And I think it'd be better to just meet after I take my first full length next week on Saturday.
So, so what I would say is, so you did that Jack Weston content diagnostic, right?
Yeah, I did all three of them.
And you reviewed them like thoroughly?
Not, I've been mostly stuck on still on physics and stuff,
Because
but not completely finished it.
I would say that it's probably best for us to meet to go over to make sure because like the entire like point of that content diagnostic is to fill in the content gaps, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
then I had you scheduled to take the section bank, the AMC section bank, and that's going to be so like the content diagnostic are just like the discrete questions, and that is fine for what it is, which is to figure out what content areas you need to work on. And then it would be the section bank right after, which is passage based, and that's going to be you applying the stuff that you learned from the content diagnostic to passages. And then the plan was to do your full length. So I think that at the very least, if you take your full length next week, like you probably won't be able to finish, the section bank by then, but I think at the very least, we should meet to go over some of the content issues because as you said, we've really just been doing cars. So
Yeah.
I if there's still issues content wise, as you mentioned, like for physics and stuff, that's gonna that's gonna make that third party full length that we take that you would take next week not be very like not you like it
Not be a good indicator of how we're doing.
yeah because
Okay.
like the entire point of like setting it up this way is that we fill in if so we know everything that we need to know about all the topics and that we
Okay.
have some practice in applying those topics. So I think that if you just go ahead and take that test, it's going to probably show you low science scores and then you're going to, blind review it and stuff, but the blind review isn't going to help too much because you still have the initial content gaps all the way from the content diagnostic, you know what I mean? Like
No,
I
okay, I definitely get what you mean. So, okay, okay, so if that's the case, then, um, yeah, to be honest, yeah, I haven't really been doing section bank. So, what do you think I should do the next week then?
Yeah, so I think first of all we should meet
Okay,
before the test that you take. Just
sure, fine. We'll meet on Friday then.
yeah, just to make sure that we uh go over the content diagnostic stuff, like you mentioned, like the physics stuff and all of that. We should meet to go over that. And during the week, you can start you can also start the section bank like this weekend and stuff. But like during the week, you can do the section bank. And then, yeah, you can take your test on that Saturday. You don't have to finish that section bank by that point, but we should definitely at least like make sure that we have all of the content stuff down.
Okay, okay. So
Hmm.
I don't know. For me, like I've been realizing, I think it's better to like if it's okay, like to try to see if we can figure out a goal or something, set a goal for me. Like how much should I maybe do for the section thing for like let's say the DB, like maybe like half of it or like
Got it,
three
got it.
quarters.
Okay.
So what do
So,
you think?
but it also hinges on reviewing the content diagnostic.
Okay, you know what I'll do? I'll go over it this weekend, the BB.
Yeah. So I think
Like
so.
really, I mean, because I went over it when I did it first. It's
Mhm.
just the topics in itself. Like I understood most part the question.
Yep,
And
yep.
then I know you have a lot of videos with other students. I was kind of rewatching those videos too.
Yeah.
And they kind of helped. So I understood it for the part. It's just like I never like
Uh-huh.
dwelled deep into the actual like specific topic as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
So maybe like I can try to do that this weekend.
because you
Um,
mentioned some
what
of
do you
the
think?
physics stuff, right?
Yeah, so I talked about Chat's Prep, so I've been using Chat's Prep, and I'm like almost done with most of all of the physics content, and I feel a lot better. Like my base is a little bit better. And there's also practice questions in his thing, which I've been like kind of reviewing, and I'm probably gonna redo them again close to like maybe Thursday or Friday. Um,
Oh, I just mean so in the Jack Weston content diagnostic for the
oh,
CP part with Ken.
okay.
I think you were saying that there's still some physics stuff in that. that you don't completely have like a full understanding of.
Yeah, maybe like a couple questions, I think. Couple questions, I think. I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because like we wanna it's like we wanna target it, right? Like I know that you are watching like the Chad's prep videos and doing the questions for the Chad prep videos, but
Sure.
if we like we want to identify like the entire point of that content diagnostic is what specific topics you have content gaps in or that you have issues with. And then we want to like target that, make sure that we get an understanding of that, and then we can move on to the next topic. So that's the idea. So like if it turns out that like okay, let's say that you got like buoyant force problem wrong in the Jack Weston content diagnostic, it wouldn't make sense to like then do like let's say Chad's prep videos for like other topics and stuff, or and it wouldn't really make sense to go on to like the section bank or practice tests until you understand that buoyant force problem in that content diagnostic. Do you know what I mean? Like you want to maximize like you want to maximize your knowledge before you take a practice test because when you take the practice test, it's you applying that knowledge to passages and questions in a, you know, timed environment. And so, but if you are still have content gaps, then you won't get a chance to really apply what you know because you just wouldn't know that thing, right? So
Yeah.
you want to maximize the content knowledge um before you take your full length because we want our full length like once we reach the point. I mean it's even okay if we maybe like push like if you need to push a full length back, but um what I really want to make sure is that once you get to the point of taking full lengths that you know all of the topics, like you have them, you not only know them, you know how to apply them. So that's the only thing that I would say. Because otherwise, like, if you lose, like, let's say you take the full length and you get some questions wrong, and the reasons that you get it wrong are like, okay, you didn't know the formula, or like, you didn't know how to apply, like, let's say the Venturi effect or like Bernoulli's principle or any of those stuff. Like, you know, you don't you want to get things if you get things wrong on the test, you want it to be for reasons other than content knowledge, if that makes sense.
No, that's definitely okay. No, I could definitely agree with you. Okay.
So
I definitely agree with you.
yeah, and to make the most of the tests, because like people have different opinion. I mean, like there a lot of like tutoring companies and stuff, like they actually say things like, okay, take a diagnostic test before like anything. But I think that's really just because they want to have you score really low and then, you know, after the tutoring or whatever, see that, you score high, and then they can say, okay, so, I'm responsible for you improving your score from this to this. Um,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I don't think that that's a good idea because I want your tests to be as high, your test result to be as high as possible. And so, um, and so we want to treat the tests a little bit more, uh, treat them with more value than just kind of like using one as a diagnostic or whatever. So yeah,
Okay.
that's what I would say for that. So okay, so and then so today you wanted to do some more cars.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, yeah, but so before that, then like at least till next Friday, then can we set a goal on like what I should try to accomplish and what I should try to do?
oh yeah, sure, sure, sure. So let's see. Um, well, okay, so for the CP content diagnostic, when you were reviewing it, um, like okay, so like first, I guess I'll ask like, did you review that one, like the entire thing or part of it?
Yes.
Review the entire CP one?
Yeah, to the end. Yeah.
All right, okay. And in it, are there still like I'm guessing there's still stuff do, that doesn't make complete sense?
Yeah, like something maybe like in physics, like something right now I'm going over is circuits and magnets. Like I was watching a bunch of videos.
Uh-huh.
I watched your circuit video from a while back.
Yeah.
Um,
So, uh-huh. Okay, okay.
And
So
then
I would say to uh do another like I guess pass of that, like looking at the ones you know that you got wrong and seeing if the stuff makes sense. Um and you could do that for see here, I'm gonna change. Oh yeah, in your calendar where
yeah, I'm sorry. I
bank.
definitely need to start crossing that stuff out, man. I'll
Oh no,
start
no,
doing
you did.
yeah.
But it's just that I have it so that it says section bank now, but where uh I'm gonna just put content diagnostic instead. So okay, so for like let's say so for tomorrow I'm just replace that section bank part with Jack Weston content diagnostic. And so for tomorrow, I would say to look over those like physics like questions again and just like make a list of topics that you feel that you need more like either practice in or for us to go over, things like that. So you could do that on Saturday. And then on Sunday, you can start the section bank.
Section B. Okay.
And then throughout that week, it would be the same thing with the section bank. And so I would say we should meet sometime like early to go over the questions that you have from the Jack Weston content diagnostic. And well,
Can we just meet on Friday? We can just meet on Friday, right? Next Friday,
see,
the day before.
because I'm thinking of like us meeting once to go over the you know questions that still don't make sense from the content diagnostic, and then then like it'll make sense for you after we meet, and then you can do the section bank and
I see what you're saying.
to go over some section bank questions, and then you take your test. So
Okay, do it twice. Okay.
maybe do something like that. Yeah, yeah. Because I want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the only days that would kind of work is maybe Wednesdays. I think that Wednesday. That's the only day. Wednesday and Friday. Yeah, Wednesday's the only day that I might be able to work.
Hmm. And you said, did you say Friday too?
Yeah, we can do Wednesday and then Friday.
Okay. So okay, let's do so on Wednesday we can go over stuff from the content diagnostic and stuff from the section bank. And then on Friday we can go over like more stuff from the section bank.
Okay.
And just make sure that we have every content thing down. So we'll do that. And then yeah, on the Saturday you can take the full length.
Okay. And then I guess I'll try to okay, last thing before we start. I guess I'll try to shut down. I'll not shut down. Try go a little bit lower on the cars. I think I've been doing like 5, 6 passages a day.
Mhm.
So it'll take me a bit. I guess I'll try to do like one or two.
Yep, yep, yep.
Second.
So
Okay. All right.
okay. So like
Sounds good.
for
Sounds
um
good.
Wednesday, like what time would work for you? What's your availability?
Oh yeah, anytime on Wednesday, to be honest. Um, could we do like hour and 30 maybe?
Hmm.
I don't know how long it would take, but
Do you want to do 1:30 Eastern on Wednesday?
yeah, that works.
1:30 to 3?
Yeah.
All
We can
right.
do that on Friday too, if that works too.
Same time you said?
Yeah, sure, that works.
1:30 to 3?
Sure.
And Naeem, yeah, okay. So okay, I put you in for Wednesday the 20th, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, and then Friday the 22nd, 1:30 p.m. Eastern.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, that sounds like a good plan. I'll work on the check question tomorrow and all that, and then I'll do section bank as much as I can.
Yep, yep. Yeah.
Okay.
We just want to leave no stone unturned.
No,
Uh,
I agree. Good.
so that when you take your test, it's a good, yeah.
Yeah, most definitely next
Okay.
time. So, but yeah.
Uh,
Yes. Can we do like a philosophy passage today, and then yeah, as much as we can.
yep. So, um, we could do like maybe a new one, or is there
Yeah,
a
let's. I want to start new. Let's do a new one.
new one? Okay. Let's see. There isn't that many of them, so you may have done some of these.
Oh no.
But I mean, that's fine. There's still a lot of resources, but let me take a look at.
I
So
need it. I've been doing pretty bad, so I guess it doesn't
like
really matter if we remap it or not. So,
so I'm just reading these. So like there's ought and is, there's modern invention. Like tell me which ones you did
oh,
or
the names I have no. Yeah, the names the title I would not be able to tell, to be honest, Shane.
you could look at your history.
Oh, that's true.
Yep. You can
Previous.
share your screen, I'll show you.
Actually, yeah, that would be a good idea.
So go up. Oh yeah, it's right here. Like just go up, scroll up. See, these are all the things that you've done, all the passages.
Okay. Yeah, but the thing is, sometimes I do them in like little sections. So I don't know if I did philosophy that, I mean, I don't know what passage name and all that stuff. So they're kind of stuck in it.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Hmm. So we could see,
Actually, wait, I can do create test. Hold up, I just realized.
yeah, create test. Let's see.
I'm seeing
Let's,
bars. Please tell me there's philosophy. Something. Ooh, we have one philosophy passage I have not done yet.
do it.
Perfect.
Oh, you just
Oh,
there, yeah.
oh, lucky day today.
Hmm, hmm.
Okay.
So this is
Qualia and color concepts. Interesting.
um. Wait, what's that? Let me see. It's a interesting thing with some of these is that they're like incorrectly labeled. Like, have you ever seen? Well, I guess you haven't looked in that way, um, but okay, yeah, let's do it. So, um, I'm gonna let you do more. So, um, so yeah, read, and same way that we do it, and tell me what they're saying, and then new idea, same idea, whatever, elab, etc. Um, but yeah, this time I'm gonna have you write the maps. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. And do you want me to do the same, like every sentence, right? Finish every sentence and try to summarize it?
So remember, less so summary, more so arguments. But yeah,
Argument, sure. Sure,
read,
argument.
yeah, you'll read, sentence by sentence, and it's sometimes, or a lot of times actually, like it's okay because sentences are going to be really long in cars most of the time. It's okay to just do like the first up to the first comma, up to the second comma. Like you don't have to read the sentence finish and then think about it. You want to read you want to think about it as you read, like word for word, like word per word. Um, so
Okay.
yep. So yep,
Hmm.
go for it.
All right. So obviously, we can become directly aware of certain representations of our experience. Right. So I think
Oh, so I'll do that highlights.
oh, you also have this. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So obviously, we can become directly aware of certain representations of our experiences. So things that we can go through our life, right? We can see it. We can see our, I guess we can see the things that are happening in our life. We know
Okay,
that,
so this is new idea, right?
yes, yes, new idea. I forgot about that. Okay.
Seems like what's being said here is that, so tell me what?
Yeah, I think this sentence is trying to say that we can like, we are aware of what's going on in our lives. Like anything that happens, like we see a car, we know the car is, like we can see that the car is
So
moving. It's part of our
so I
experience.
mean you
Yes.
you are doing what I usually tell you to do of putting it in your own words, but it's a bit harder for this one because it's a little bit more abstract. So let's kind of think about it in the abstract way that it is. So um so yeah, try it again. So we can become directly aware of
Our experiences,
maybe something else.
the representations
Uh-huh.
of our experiences. So what it is, we can become aware of certain representations of our experience. So certain visuals.
So uh so we don't have to like when we read this first sentence to be able to like make sense of it in our own way because typically after this sentence would be same idea elab. So
Yeah.
author will elaborate that for us. So so you know how I say like when I read a new idea, I just think, what do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
Like as if I'm talking to the author. So like the author tells me, obviously we can become directly aware of certain representations of our experiences. My response would be, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And then most of the time they'll elaborate on it. So we don't have to do that. Like so I it's good that you're
Well,
thinking
hello.
in your own words, but also what we don't have to do is we don't have to like think about what is meant by that because they'll likely tell us what they mean.
Okay, just put it. So you're basically saying just say word for word what they're saying. Like don't try to put in my own thoughts.
Yeah, put in your own words, right?
Words.
Um, but it, like at least for like this first sentence here, like you don't have to like especially something as abstract as this, like just kind of trust that they'll likely elaborate on it. So just think like when you see a new idea, just think, okay, what do you mean by that? And then you should see an elaboration on what they mean by that instead of saying that like
Hmm.
we see or visual or whatever, right?
I see what you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying. It's like a kind of, yeah, okay, because sometimes you can, but in this case you can't because it's abstract what you're saying. Okay.
Hmm.
Actually, wait, I'm gonna go ahead and get my charger real quick because
Yep,
my
yep.
computer.
Yeah, yeah. So whenever you charge something like a battery, you're making it an electrolytic cell.
Right? Yeah.
But we'll get into that some other time. All right, cool. So, yeah. we can become directly aware of certain representations of our experiences. What do you mean by that? You can continue.
We know that a red round object in our sight is a visual experience of a red tomato.
Okay. CC,
So,
they're
yeah.
giving us some ELAB. So, okay, what are they saying here?
Yeah, so I guess it's whenever we see something that's like a red round object, it gives us it gives us the apparently like when we look at a red round object, gives us experience of a red tomato, of looking at a red tomato.
Hmm. Yep.
I
So
guess
you
we kind of
say
correlate that like a red round object. Let me say, oh
round
look, it's a red
object.
tomato.
If we see it, it becomes a visual experience of a red tomato. So that could possibly mean then that the red tomato, I guess, or rather the red round object could be the representation of our visual experience of a red tomato.
The red round object is our visual experience of the red tomato you're saying.
Uh, I think so. I don't know yet, but I think
Okay.
red round object is the representation of our visual experience of that red tomato. Because our new idea is representations of like being aware of representations of experiences, right?
Yes. Being aware.
So
Okay.
so if
Yeah.
this is a visual experience of a red tomato, that's the experience part. What's the representation part? Probably the red round object. So, I mean,
Okay.
I don't know if that's for certain, but that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Ned Block appears to believe that I deny this. So it seems like a new idea with this person named Ned Block. Um, and the it seems like Ned Block apparently thinks that the author disagrees with this statement that was
Hmm.
made.
Yep. And we
He said
have, oh yeah, I was gonna say, and we
the
have,
I.
what's up?
Are you gonna talk about the I because it's like the
Yeah,
author's thing?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So again, author's opinion, rare, but super useful. Here we don't know exactly what he believes, but he's saying that some other person believes that he, the author, denies this example, I guess.
Okay.
Or denies that the argument of how we can become directly aware of representations of our experiences. So, okay, cool.
He says that I believe experience only involves represent. Okay, no, sorry. Experience only involves representation, not what is doing the representing.
Okay.
Okay, so he kind of it seems like he elaborates on that idea on
Mhm.
what Ned Block seems to think. And essentially, Ned Block thinks that the author here is saying that because before he was saying, right, as essentially the representation is what leads to the experience.
Okay.
But here Ned Block thinks that, to be honest, I don't really know what that last part is, not what is doing the representing. That part is just throwing me off, to be honest. Not really sure what that means.
Okay. So the being aware of certain representations of our experiences, example, and then some guy, Ned Block, thinks that the author denies it. And if the author denies it, what does the author believe? Well, according to Ned Block, the author believes that experience only involves representations, not what is doing the representation. So I think that means that I think it could so okay, so let's think about what can help us understand this, right? So we know that it's not like this red object example, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because then Block thinks that the author denies that,
Hmm.
and that the author believes this thing in the last sentence. So the thing in the last sentence should be very much different from the thing in the first sentence,
Yeah.
right? Like without like it's like they're functionally doing a contrast word without using a contrast word.
Mm,
So so okay. So now
that's a good point. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, a lot of times like, even with like a lot of the science ones, like I was going over with a previous student today, like um it ultimately comes down to like a lot of like just logic. Um and like I don't have you ever taken like a formal logic class? It's like
AP Lang, does that count?
what's that?
Does AP Lang count? Sorry.
AP what?
AP language or
Oh,
something?
like
I don't know.
English? Oh no, no,
Yeah.
like yeah, it's like if P then Q, like that kind of stuff. So like here the way that I'm seeing it is like I can almost black box this. Like I don't have to be, let's see how I can describe this. So like whatever this is gonna be like either like or the opposite or different from whatever that is.
Yeah.
And like typically that's a contrast word. Like there should be a contrast word in between. But we effectively have that because it's
Mm,
saying that this guy Ned Block thinks that I deny the first part, and he says that I believe the second part. So the second part must be different from the first part because if you deny the first part, you believe the second part, right?
yeah.
Okay. So now for this, well, we're just gonna try our best. So I guess this is saying.
Not release. No, I'm also just reading in my head. Sorry. I
Mhm.
was reading aloud, I guess.
Yeah, so experience only involves representations, not what is doing the representing.
So I
So,
guess I think what maybe I think what he's trying to say that
huh?
Ned Blocks think that the authors thinks that like Ned Block thinks that the author doesn't understand the significance of the red round object. He probably thinks that it's not important at all. That's what I'm kind of getting at. Because not
Um,
what it's representing.
so I guess what I think this might be about is that um okay. The red round object in our sight is a visual experience of a red tomato. And I think if you say that experience only involves the representation, it does not include the experience part. Or rather, sorry, it doesn't include well, I guess, okay, so if the red round object, what is doing the representing could be sight or like that visual experience. And
Ooh,
maybe,
okay.
I don't know, I'm just,
Mm,
I'm
okay. Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. That's the best we got, right? Because
Yeah,
the good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
So okay. So like let's
okay.
just maybe take away from this that um whatever is doing the representing, um Ned Block thinks the author uh doesn't care about.
So in this case, we're coming to the conclusion that it's possibly the site or whatever is. In the example, we can use an example as site. in our mapping to help us remember that, I guess.
Yeah, so let's see what we can do for the map. So like I'll actually start this one off. So let's see.
Representation leads to our experience. Seems that our conscious thinking, our sight leads to the representation, which allows us to visually experience something.
So
I think I'm kind of getting it.
I put we can be aware of representations of our experiences. For example, red object through sight gives you a visual experience of a red tomato. Ned Block thinks author denies this and that the author does not consider what is doing the representing. So to me, that's either the sight or the round object part. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah,
We don't know yet.
let's see what happens from here.
So let me insist that my representation, I mean a feature of experience, one aspect of the red tomato out of many. Okay, so here he's essentially defining what the representation is, and he also says, so let me insist. So he seems pretty like, whoa, like I need to do this.
Yeah, and we
Um,
have I again, and now we're actually saying what the author believes. So this is our author's opinion here, right?
yeah,
So he says that when he uses the word representation, he means a feature of experience, which is one aspect out of many.
okay.
So this could
Like
mean,
so like a part of a tomato?
or it could mean a red object. It could mean a red and round object, that
Hmm.
kind of thing, maybe. Because, like, so they're saying one aspect of the red tomato. And in the first paragraph, we said that the red tomato was a red round object. So maybe it's just one of those things, like it's red or round or something like that. But but okay. So yeah, it's still pretty abstract. So let's see what we can do. Yeah.
Okay. My point was that we can have an experience without being aware of the experience's mental paint.
Okay. New term.
And without
So
mental
okay.
paint, okay,
We
just
don't
process.
need the mental paint part, right?
You said we don't need it?
Oh, so he's saying my point is that we can have an experience without being aware of the experience's mental paint.
So in this case, it's probably the red color on the tomato, I'm guessing. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
So like now that we see that, we have a new term, they're gonna define it. So,
Yep.
yep.
That is the mental processes that enable us to experience things and to represent those experiences. So we got a new aspect here, the mental processes, which hasn't really been mentioned before.
Mhm.
And
So this
so
passage sucks.
Abstract, what is this, man?
So, okay.
This guy wrote it this like this guy wrote this passage for that one person.
hmm
Just for
Yeah, I
him.
know, right? He's like,
Just for him.
net block. It's like
Just for him.
I even see the word block like throughout the passage. So like this is just like gonna be a big thing about like Ned
Doing
Block.
up like,
You
yeah.
don't know what I believe. So okay, let's see. So author says we can have an experience without being aware of the experience's mental paint. What is mental paint? Mental processes that let us experience things and represent those experiences.
Okay.
Okay. So, all
Does he
right.
mean to say it's maybe like something that's automatic, like that just happens in our brain, that just creates that creates the representation which leads to the experience, maybe?
I
Is
think
that
so, maybe. But
okay?
yeah. Okay.
We lack an experience of what it is that allows us to experience things, like a red tomato. Okay, apparently he's more elaborating this. I think that's what he's trying to do here. Um, okay. Lack an experience. So apparently we don't have enough of an experience something to be able to experience the red tomato. That's kind of that's the best what I'm understanding out of this.
Yeah. Do you know what's meant when something is meta?
Um, I hear that word thrown around a lot around, but I've never really bothered to really understand it. But yeah, I'm not quite sure. I've heard it around though, but I've never quite completely
Yeah.
understood that.
So I think what they're trying to say is that um let me think of an example. So it's like, okay, my brain is able to read a sentence, but my brain is also able to understand that it is reading a sentence.
Mm. So
So
you're reading a sentence, but your brain is also able to understand that it's
yeah, you're
reading
like my
it.
brain is able to understand that it's reading a sentence and that it itself knows that it is reading the sentence.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
think
Okay.
with we lack an experience of what it is that allows us to experience things. So like I think that's like the brain allows you to read something, but we might lack the experience of the part of the brain that lets us read something. I
Mm.
think that might be what
Okay.
they're saying. Yeah.
All right. We do not have, as if were, some experience, as in a movie of ourselves looking at a thing like a red tomato. Kind of sounds like what you're saying. So
Yeah,
there's nothing in our brain that like allows us to see that we're actually looking at a red tomato.
mhm.
So I see
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Yes, seems like it.
So okay. So like yeah, thankfully we have some better, kind of
This takes a bit, yeah, he's taking his time
here.
really explaining it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So okay, yeah. So it's like our brain reads something and then we can also like visualize ourselves reading something. That's
okay.
the meta thing. But that's a meta thing that the author says that we don't have, right?
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
don't have, you know, some experience like a movie of ourselves looking at the thing. So we don't have the experience of the experience, if that makes sense. Or we don't have we don't we don't experience the things that that we experience.
Yeah, 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 meta. I guess what you're saying. We
Hmm.
only have the experience of the thing we experience, the tomato, not the experience of our experience, the film of ourselves.
Okay. I
So I
think,
guess we're saying, so like we experience a tomato, but we don't experience ourselves seeing the tomato in a weird
yep,
way. So we're not like looking at ourselves from like a third person view. Like I don't have a view of myself in a third person looking at me,
perfect way,
looking at that red tomato.
perfect way to describe that. Yeah. So I think,
All right.
so yeah, so fortunately for us, we have enough elaboration. I think by the time they give us the movie uh
Yeah.
example, I think it makes it a lot more clear. So for this paragraph, um, what can we write?
Honestly, I feel like it's so much of like it gets to the point of really like where we understand it towards the end. And I mean, I would have just put like it's we we only experience or see what like we only experience what we experience, but we don't look at ourselves from a third person view of experiencing what we're experiencing. And just put it, I was gonna think of just putting it at that
Mhm.
because everything else just seems like a lot like just so much, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yep. I wrote, we don't have the experience of the experience, in parentheses, movie of experiencing the tomato. And then AO for author's opinion.
Okay, sounds good.
Hmm.
Block says that there is a prior question, namely whether there is such a thing as mental paint, the thing that allows us to experience the red tomato. So seems like a new idea. Uh, we got quotations about a prior question. So, and we got block here. So block essentially is saying that there must be something before, or really whether if there's something, whether there is something that allows us that whether there's something like as we're experiencing, like something like the origin of the experience, essentially. He seems to say that there might be a possibility of an origin of experience. Okay.
Yeah, now I actually realized in paragraph two, I should have included mental paint because that's a new term.
Okay.
And this is a good example of, because you were saying, you mentioned before, like, hard to tell what's important, what's not important. Um,
Yeah.
so I kind of was happy to see like the film tomato example, so I just wrote that, but I forgot that we want, new terms to be written as well. And now that I see that they're talking about it in paragraph three now, that like automatically constitutes like main idea, right? Like argument repeated more than once. So now we know that that's going to be an important thing. So I'm going to write down for paragraph two, mental paint is,
Mental processes
yeah, isn't,
that
so
leads
wait,
to an experience right?
the mental paint is the thing that the meta thing of like the movie or whatever. So,
Yeah.
whoops. Um, So the mental, because they say it said in the second paragraph, mental paint is the thing. At first, I was focusing more so on the mental processes, but now I see that it's more so mental paint is something that lets you experience things and represent those experiences, which means, um,
The
you're
thing,
experiencing the experience.
yeah, they kind of explain it here too, right? The thing that allows us to
Yeah,
experience the
yeah, it's
experience.
even better there. So, like that's another thing. Like as they continue to elaborate, it'll become clearer and clearer and clearer. So yeah, mental. So like it seems like the author doesn't think that we really have mental paint, I think. Right?
Yeah, something that allows us to experience it. Okay.
Yeah, so okay, so Mental paint, what allows us to experience the red tomato. Oh, well, I don't know if that it allows us to experience a red tomato, but I don't know if that's then the experience of experiencing the red tomato. Um,
Yeah,
experience
right. The thing that allows us to experience. I think like aligned with the meta thing, right? No?
maybe. All right, whatever. Let's
Okay.
move, continue. Let's see
Of
what.
course, there is a prior question only for someone who holds as block does that we can directly experience an object. So it seems that the author is trying to say here that this question can this question can really be something that is debated on if you hold the same view as block does, I guess. I think that's what it's trying to say.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. This is a prior question only for someone. Wait, of course, this is a prior question only for someone, one who holds, as Block does, that we can directly experience an object that we need no process to represent a thing.
I
Okay.
mean,
So with Block, he says that we don't need a process to represent something and that we can directly experience something. Okay.
okay. If mental paint does not exist, we cannot experience it. Okay, so if mental paint, right? The meta thing I'm kind of yeah, or the thing, the meta thing, we can't really experience it.
Okay, so now we could say mental paint is what lets you directly experience something.
Right. And we're saying this statement needs to be more in line with block, right? Kind of losing myself here. 'Cause
Mhm.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it's something that the author is thinking, like accepting, or is it? Because I feel like it would have been nice if there was like some thus or therefore or something, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure yet because we are saying that um let's see that Block thinks that we can directly experience an object and we don't need a process to represent something, and that if mental paint does not exist, we cannot experience it. Um, but let's see what they say after.
Okay. The view that we cannot become aware of mental paint is compatible with the claim that there is no such thing as mental paint. Okay. The view that we cannot become aware. Okay. And that seems to be an earlier point. He says it in the beginning of the first sentence of the passage. Right? He says that we can become directly aware of certain representations of our experience. And then here he's trying to say that. Also, I think this last sentence here is probably most likely a new idea, I'm thinking. Doesn't seem to be related to the mental paints. Oh, actually, never mind. Because he does say that there is no such thing as mental pain. Okay, never mind. No, I think it's the same idea.
Okay, let's see. So,
Hmm. That. Okay. So I guess the last sentence he's trying to say that that's like the view that we can't process mental pain is the same thing with the fact that there is no such thing as mental pain.
Yeah, I wrote MP mental paint allows us to experience the red tomato. Block says direct experience does not need process to represent the thing. And MP mental paint equals experience. And that we cannot be aware of mental paint is equal to no such thing as mental paint.
Okay.
So here I was still like I still don't really understand it, but I'm just kind of taking what they said about block. So block says um that the mental paint is the thing that allows us to experience the red tomato, and that block directly says that we can directly experience an object, but we don't need the process to represent the thing. And then mental paint doesn't exist. We can't experience it. So I equated mental paint with experience. And then the view that if you can't be aware of the mental paint, it's the
No
same
such.
thing as if there was no mental paint to begin with.
Okay.
Mhm.
Much of Bloch's comments are considered, no, sorry. Much of Bloch's comments are concerned to argue against what he calls representationalism. Okay. To argue against what he calls representationalism, the view that a representation of the world is synonymous with all possible experiences of the world. So yeah, so some comments about so a lot of things that Block says is based on his this idea. You get a new term here, represent. Also, I think this is more of a new idea,
Mhm.
representationalism, and apparently that whatever is part of the world is what we experience. So I'm guessing if it's not part of the world, then we cannot experience it, according to him, because he says synonymous. Makes me think that.
Okay, now I see something else in paragraph two that I probably should have written, but it was up
Mm.
top where he says, um,
My question?
representation is one, so like feature of experience, one aspect out of many.
Oh,
And the reason I'm putting that in is because now I'm seeing representationalism is about all possible experiences of the world.
mm.
And that just reminded me of up top with the author's opinion. By representation, he means a feature of experience, one aspect out of many.
But here we see block is everything.
So Block uh says that, or it says that Block is arguing against that, arguing against
Oh, okay, okay.
representationalism.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't see that. Okay.
And representationalism is the view that a representation of the world is the same as all possible experiences of the world.
Okay, so he doesn't agree with that. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
In this view, a perception of the red tomato, no matter how fleeting or erroneous, has to be taken as the full and only possible way to experience the red tomato. Okay, so yeah, so in representationalism, it's we kind of see an example here, elaboration of like a nice little example here, right? So
Mhm.
whenever we see the red tomato, that's for what it is, right? That's the only and the full way to really experience it. And it's, again, as you said, right? Because earlier author points out it's only if we were to look technically under his view, if we were to look at that red tomato, it would just be a part or like an aspect. I like aspect. I think that's a better way to put it. Aspect of it. So yeah, I guess paragraph 4, we can kind of just say that Locke argues against representationalism, the idea that representation of the world equals every single experience. Example, you see a tomato. Seeing a tomato equals full and lonely experience of the tomato.
Yeah, and then I also put like kind of like this part, like so Block is against representationalism, which is saying that a representation is all possible experiences, no matter how wrong it is. And that's where it says a perception of the red tomato, no matter how fleeting or erroneous, has to be taken as the full and only possible way to experience it. So it doesn't matter if it's wrong, it's still valid, I guess, under representationalism. Okay.
I am certainly inclined to think that there can be different attitudes toward the same experience. So again, we see I here, another
Yep.
opinion of his. He really feels that this can't be something strict to be able to experience. There has to be there can be the different approaches or really attitudes. I like that word that he says, I guess. I also believe that what it is like to be in one of these attitudes need not be the same as what is it like to be in another. So I guess there's some variability in how
Mhm.
we essentially experience things, right? So how we
Yeah.
experience one, because he says again, right, one aspect of the red tomato out of many, right?
Mhm.
So one aspect can have a certain way to experience and another aspect have another way. For example,
Mhm.
hmm, what it is like to believe P is not the same as what it is like to desire P. Okay. Believing in the existence of a red tomato is not the same thing as wanting to eat a red tomato.
Okay.
Hmm, interesting.
Mhm.
Right, so yeah, I noticed I was trying to reword it there, but like, oh wow, okay, never mind. I just remember what you told me before, right? It's kind of abstract. I should probably just keep reading. Um, yeah, so again, I think what he's trying to say is, yeah, so if you have they can have different ways to go about the same experience, different ways to approach it.
Yeah,
And
but
yeah,
different attitudes towards the same experience. For example, to believe P is not the same thing as to desire P, and AO for others' opinion. And we could also see that, well, what appears to me seems that this may be going against representationalism, but you know,
hmm.
we'll see. Because yeah, okay,
To feel a pain in one's foot may be at least in part to perceive a certain sort of event in one's foot. Seems like a new idea.
okay.
I'm gonna go to the next sentence here.
Mhm.
A feeling of pain may also involve a more or less intense desire to escape the cause of that event.
Okay.
Presumably, a desire with that content is different from a belief or other attitude. From a belief or other attitude with that content. Having a pain in your foot is different from worrying about stubbing your toe. Um, to be frankly, I don't think this is kind of a new idea. I think this is kind of the same thing as they talked about in the previous passage. I mean, paragraph, sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. This could be same, more elaborate, or rather same, example. So we just
Yeah,
had more examples. So a desire with content different from a belief or other attitude with that content. So, and then, having a pain is different from worrying about something. So the content, I guess, is pain in the foot, but there could be a desire associated with that content, which is different from a belief associated with that content or some other attitude. So we can kind of say that it's like arrow to the above, which is the argument of different attitudes can have wait, different attitudes towards the same experience.
experience
We could just say like examples, uh desire or pain in foot,
does not mean that
desire
it's different from worrying about, yeah, stubbing your toe, just hitting your toe against something.
arrow to the above, for example, pain in foot, you could have desire with content, which is not the same as having a belief or some other attitude with that content.
Okay. Similarly, what is like to see something as ahead and to the right, ahead and to the right is not normally the same as what it is like to hear something as ahead and to the right. So yeah, I think this is again another, he's even elaborating on even more now. Because the word similarly, yeah, so easy ahead. Okay. There may be exceptions. In dim light, one may have the impression that one sees an obstacle ahead and to the right, whereas in fact one has detected it by echolocation. Okay, so it kind of gives an exception here to where this might not apply.
Okay.
Different senses produce different relationships to objects. Mm,
Okay.
okay, so yeah, so again, I think this goes back to that previous argument about different attitudes about something towards we can have different attitudes towards the same experience. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so I think this is similar to that, but it's now talking about senses.
Right.
So I see like see not here, so I put C does not equal here, and then example with like echolocation or whatever. And then different senses lead to different relationships to objects.
Okay. Representation then is not the same as experience. My argument that we cannot experience the experience of what is represented, experience the experience of what is represented, is not the same as not having those experiences.
All
Okay.
right, yeah, it really nicely, you know,
Put it together for
presented
us.
for us here, like very like explicitly. So we cannot, yeah, it's like the meta thing. We cannot experience the experience of what is represented, but that is not the same as not having those experiences. So in other words,
Mm,
um, you can still have an experience if you can't experience the experience of what is represented.
okay. We can experience a red tomato. We just cannot experience what mechanisms make experience possible.
Okay.
Gotcha. So I think here we can just put that just that we cannot experience what we experience what we experience does not mean that we did not experience it. Okay. Oh, they must have.
Representation does not equal experience. Cannot experience the experience of what is represented is not the same as not having those experiences. Tomato example again, author's opinion. So, okay. So there's a lot of confusing stuff here, but I think we have it kind of nicely presented to us at the end. So, what would you say our main idea can be?
Definitely, we will include the word experience. Yes, I think we can kind of just say that just so we don't, I just yeah, like kind of just word for word what he kind of puts at the end. Just that we cannot experience what we are experiencing does not mean that we did not have that experience, or doesn't mean that we're not ex that that yeah that it doesn't mean the same thing as not having that experience.
We cannot experience the experience of what is represented. In other words, what we cannot experience whatever is letting us have the experience.
Yeah,
So, and I think that last example was nice because it's like, okay, we can experience a red tomato, but we can't experience the mechanisms that make experience possible, which I guess is like light hitting your eyes, hitting your, retina, information going in through your brain and depicting that, picture of the red tomato. So we can't experience those mechanisms um, that make the experience of seeing the red tomato. I think that's what we're saying here.
okay,
So I think that's just what I can take away from it, from like the last paragraph.
yeah,
But there's still a lot of other confusing things here that I'm still kind of confused about, like a lot of things. But okay,
yeah.
this is the best we can do. So yeah, why don't you take a screenshot and then we can try these questions out.
Okay.
All right, and I'll block this out. All right, yeah, let's try this one.
Of the following statements, which one best describes the central focus of the passage? Yeah, so seems like a main idea question. So yeah, we're probably gonna try to find something that talks about how, yeah, we cannot experience the experience of what is represented, but we just gotta focus on whatever is allowing us to experience that. So one person's experience an object will not necessarily one person's experience of an object will not necessarily resemble another's. Yeah, I'm not really sure about this answer choice actually. Um, because we're not really, how doesn't really trying to compare one's experience to another. He's kind of talking about experience as a whole. So I'm not really liking A so far. B, an experience of an object is the same as a representation of that object. Mm, no, that kind of goes along with the representationalism stuff, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that kind of goes along with that. And I don't think so. Right? It's like he thinks of there's different, you can have different, what is it? What do you say? Different attitudes about the same experience. So the mental processes that enable us to have experience or not experience. Ooh, I like that one.
Mhm.
One can have different understandings of the same experience. D sounds pretty good, but I'm not. I really want to go with C because D is kind of like a more like a supporting claim in a weird way about C. So I'm liking C right now.
Yeah, because D we see as like where different senses, different relationships to objects, and then paragraph five, different attitudes for the same experience. So I think D would be too localized, but yeah, C is pretty much exactly lines up. So that's nice.
Locke's assertion that mental paint may not exist. Yeah, so he says the mental paint does not exist. Locke direct experience does not need process to represent thing. Mental paint equals the experience. Cannot be aware of mental paint. No such thing as mental paint. Is okay, supported by reference to a philosophical concept. Not quite sure about that. Supported by the passage with an example. I think so. As far as I remember, yeah, he used a passage with the red tomato in this paragraph, I think. Um, I don't think there's any refuting going on. I'm not really quite sure about this one. But I'm thinking maybe B.
So let's think about what what's Block's stance on mental paint.
Um, yeah, so we don't need a process. There's yeah, there's nothing that had yeah, there's no process that represents a thing. That's kind of his whole thing with mental paint. I think he also says that there's no such thing, right?
Okay. So Block says we don't need a process to represent a thing, and that if mental paint does not exist, we cannot experience it, right?
Mm.
But then the author here says, hmm,
The view that we cannot become aware of mental pain is compatible with the claim that there is no such thing as mental pain. Yeah, I think this was funny enough. That's something that I think we talked about there. I was like, I don't know who's saying, I don't know what they're trying to like. Who's saying who?
okay, okay, let's see elsewhere.
Kind of brainstorming here. I
Mhm.
still feel like we can kind of rule out C and D because they talk about evidence, and I don't really see a certain evidence or anything because we see mental pain really mentioned there, and then later on, it's never really mentioned after that.
So all of the orange stuff we can consider to be evidence. Um, like examples can still be considered evidence. Like it doesn't have to be like, this is a fact from like this, reference or something like that. But for these types of questions that say like supported, supported, refuted, refuted, also for questions that are like no, comma, a bunch of stuff, like yes, comma, a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I prefer to not focus on that first part and to focus on the second part because
Mm,
because whether the first part is right or wrong is dependent on that second part.
sure.
So so yeah, I would not eliminate anything based on supported or refuted yet, but what the second part says. So for instance, like right now I don't know if it's supported or refuted. So let's just look at the second part. So A says supported by a reference to a philosophical concept. So let's see. What did we have any philosophical concept mentioned?
I don't really think so. I mean, the closest we have is maybe there's the view that we cannot become aware of mental pain is compatible with the claim.
Oh, I mean like what about yeah, you're close to it. Your cursor.
Oh, the representationalism stuff?
That's a philosophical concept, we could say, because
Mm.
it's a new term about philosophy. So I would say that that could be a philosophical concept. Um, okay.
Mental pain. Okay.
Okay, let's see. So block appears to not believe in mental paint, right?
The thing is, I thought he did because he says there's in the prior question says that there is a prior question, namely whether there is such a thing as mental pain, the thing that allows us to experience it, right? So I'm kind of confused why they're saying that may not exist. Is it maybe because it says whether there is such a thing?
So, yeah, so the prior question is whether there's such a thing as mental paint or not. And then it says that this is only a prior question for someone who thinks like Block does, that we can directly experience an object and that we need no process to represent a thing, right? And
That makes sense. Okay.
in paragraph two, we said that mental paint is the processes that enable us to experience things, right?
Okay. That rings a
So
bell.
yeah, like I wasn't able to like put that in my map in those ways. And I think like for
Yeah.
this passage, probably the only one where I would be like, all right, let's look at the actual passage because it's really hard to figure out what's being said in the map. But like, okay, so for
Mm.
this question, this is how we should approach this. First, let's look at what is meant by mental paint. They introduced it in paragraph two, and they said that it is the I'm gonna add it to the thing. So basically, mental paint equals
Mental processes.
processes that enable us to experience things and represent those experiences. Uh,
Yep.
let me put that right there. Okay, now I'm gonna put it like no. I'm trying to erase the part where it says mental paint so I can all right, whatever. So here, mental paint equals processes that
Allow us to
us
experience.
experience things and represent those experiences. I'm just gonna put it like on the bottom then. So that's
Oh,
what mental paint is, okay? And then and then we say that according to Block, that we don't need a process to represent something, right?
Yeah,
So Block is arguing against mental paint, right?
I see it. I see it now. I see it now.
Okay. And okay. So, okay, now let's think about what the how the author feels or well, if this is supported or refuted.
The thing is, I don't really like the more we think about it, I don't really know if I can say A either too by reference. Because if we're saying the only closest when we look at it, right, representation is the only thing that we have to a physical or philosophical concept.
Mhm.
Um, but it doesn't seem to relate back to the mental pain. So I don't know about A. I'm really not feeling A.
So if we ultimately said in the last paragraph that if you can't experience the experience of what is represented is not the same thing as not having those experiences.
Yeah.
So I think
Oh.
so I think what we're saying here, and this is yeah, so okay, I think what we're saying here is that um so I think the author's saying, okay, we can't tell if we have mental paint or not, but that doesn't mean that we don't have it. I think maybe that could be what's meant there. So, okay, mental paint processes that let us experience and represent those processes. And last paragraph, if we can't experience the experience of what is represented, is not the same as not
Experiencing.
having those experiences. So we can
Yeah.
still experience the tomato, we just cannot experience the mechanisms that make that experience possible. So I think that the author um I think so the author is saying I think that just because we can't experience mental pain doesn't mean that it does not exist. So, but okay. So like A supported by a reference to a philosophical concept, we
Hmm.
say that so this is a philosophical concept and we said Bloch wants to argue against that philosophical concept, right?
Yes.
So, and Bloch says that mental pain doesn't exist. So that wouldn't be supported by this philosophical concept because he argues against that philosophical concept, right?
Yeah.
So I think A would be maybe like either like refuted or something by a reference to a philosophical concept. But as long as you can see that a philosophical concept is the representationalism thing, um, that's important. So, as opposed to like thinking that they never mentioned like a philosophical concept.
Yeah, I was on that impression, but makes
Mhm.
sense.
Okay, and then supported in the passage with an example. So we have plenty of examples. Um, so, but we don't seem to have an example of that supports mental paint not existing, right?
Yeah.
So, because, he says that here, and there's no example really there. And then here we say that he argues against this philosophical view of representationalism. And then it gives us examples of what representationalism is. Uh,
Yeah.
and then from that point on, it's the author's opinions, right?
Yeah. We
So,
wouldn't, this wouldn't relate to anything, right? Because I'm looking at an example, because I mean, they also mention here mental processes, mental pain here.
mhm.
None of this stuff would kind of delve into that, right? Because he talks about maybe like we can only have the experience of it, the tomato, not the experience of our experience ourselves.
Yeah, so that would be something like maybe like C, where it's earlier in the passage, because the assertion that mental paint may not exist is in the third paragraph, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So, so yeah, if we were to talk about paragraph two, that would be like something earlier in the passage. But in paragraph two, it just seems to define what that means. Um, but doesn't seem to address Block's assertion that it doesn't exist, right?
Mm.
So
No.
so that could be out, and that could be out, and then let's see, refuted by evidence later in the passage is probably going to be our closest answer, just because I believe that the author probably believes in mental paint.
He just doesn't know if he just basically doesn't see how, like
Yeah,
we just don't know how exactly.
yeah. So I guess the author's saying, like, if you can't perceive it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And
Yep.
Block is saying it doesn't exist. So,
Mm. Okay.
so that could, I guess, also help. I mean, if you knew that part, then that can help you with like the first part of these, because then you
Yeah.
would want something that said refute. But, but yeah, I still think it's best to kind of look at the second part. So, and yeah, a lot of times in cars, like the right answer is just the one that's least wrong.
Okay. And can you
So,
explain again why exactly it was in the earlier? It was just because it was before the assertion made, so it's
oh yeah,
harder to.
so while this is earlier in the passage, um, it doesn't refute what Block says, because Block says that mental paint doesn't exist. Paragraph two, we just define what mental paint is, but we don't say whether or not it exists or not.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Like
I see the
like
distinction there.
yeah, C would work if paragraph two said mental pain exists.
Makes
Yes.
sense.
Then that would refute what Block says after that it doesn't exist. Yeah. Okay.
Which of the following beliefs would be most in agreement with the primary theme of the passage? It's kind of nice. It goes back to the main idea. I think we can kind of use the main idea to answer this.
Yep.
Experience what we experience, of what is represented, and whatever lets us experience it. We use experience, not knowledge, to interact with the world. I'm liking that because the knowledge part could go into the experience of the experience, I think, kind of. The job of the mind is to make a complex world comprehensible. Um, Not quite. I think this kind of contradicts the main idea in a weird way.
Okay.
No, sorry, our minds do many things that we are not fully aware of. Oh, that one actually looks good too. Our minds do not do many things. Yeah, okay, so I'm between A and C right now. All right, so D, what's D? Assume that there is more to an object than what you can see. Ah, this seems more like again, I think this is similar to question one. I think D kind of like, if anything, it's more like a supporting aspect to it of how,
There's a reason, a clear-cut reason why D wouldn't be it. Um, so is this a main idea question or a structure question?
oh, it's a main idea question. So
All
is
right,
that would be my structure, right?
how do you know it's a main idea?
Primary theme.
All right. Because they could have said a theme,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Now, okay, so if it's main idea, we can eliminate for localization choices that talk about things that happen in one paragraph. So
Yep.
D, what is that? What paragraph is that related to?
Two.
Which one?
Two.
Hmm.
The feature of the aspect, right? Two.
Uh, Maybe a different one.
McCoy, feature and aspect. One.
No.
Um,
Look for where in the map we wrote the word C.
oh, seven.
Mhm. So seven is where they say you can see something and it's not the same as hearing it, right?
Mm, okay.
So
Oh,
if
yeah, I see what you're saying.
yeah. So there's more to an object than what you can see. That's in paragraph seven only, where we talk about the senses. Like I get that you're saying we talked about it in paragraph one because we said sight and visual experience, right?
And I said two as well because it's like the one, the feature of an experience, the one aspect of it too. Doesn't count.
Yeah, with that, I don't know if they mean a visual aspect because they could
True.
mean, the taste of it, right? The feel of it, things like
Okay.
that. So, like, when I see the word see, I only see that mentioned in the paragraph one with sight.
Mm,
More importantly, paragraph seven, we're saying that to see something is not the same as hearing it, and so that's where they talk about the different senses. And so when I see the word see, I think of the sense. But yeah, D wouldn't be it because that is only localized to paragraph seven, right?
okay. Sounds good. All right, so I guess we're between A and C.
Okay. What is closer to our main idea?
Well, I'm still,
What's our main idea?
we cannot experience the experience of what is represented, whatever lets us have
Mm-hmm.
that experience.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm liking, I'm feeling a little, reading that again, I'm feeling a little bit more towards possibly C.
Okay.
Um, I'm not liking A because, yeah, I'm liking C.
So A says we use experience, not knowledge. We talk a lot about experience in this passage, but I don't see anywhere in the passage that says anything about where like knowledge is something that we're not using.
Yeah.
And then also interacting with the world, we don't really talk about.
Oh, okay.
Because what we wrote
Mm,
was, you know,
experience.
we cannot experience the experience of, I think the what is represented can make it a little confusing. So if I got rid of that, it would be we cannot experience the experience of whatever lets us have the experience, right?
Mm,
So,
yep.
and that was like when I thought of the example with the brain, right? Like if I'm reading something, I can like think about my brain reading the thing, but it's not like I'm aware of like the neurons it's like firing and all of that stuff. Like
Yeah.
right? So
Okay.
so so A is just saying that we use this instead of that to interact with the world, but our main idea is that we there's like we can't experience the thing that lets us have experiences. So um
Right.
so like it's almost like the main idea is like a problem. Like we have a problem in that we can't experience the things that lets us have the experience. Whereas A is like almost like a solution. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
you want to interact with the world, don't use knowledge, use experience.
Yeah. It
So,
seems to be too concrete. Yeah. Too
mhm.
much of an answer.
Yep,
See where you're saying.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and when in doubt, just go with what's closest to the main idea and what's like directly most closest to the main idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I've seen myself get a little bit better of it, but yeah, it's like situations like this where it's hard to see that. But yeah. The author asserts that each of the five senses, yeah,
All
I'm
right.
just trying to go on top of my head. So some of the senses we only see in paragraph 7, right? So he uses see is not the same as hear,
Mhm.
right? We can use there was a whole argument with the different attitudes, right? Different attitudes. We can have the different attitudes about the same experience.
That was up here though, right?
Yeah, sorry, up here, yeah, paragraph 5, sorry.
Oh, you're looking
Also, but
here.
like, didn't he? Yeah, he used 6, 7, and almost 8 to kind of all, or 6 and 7 to, and 8, I think too. No, 5, 6, yes, 5, 6, 7 to go with that.
Well, so five, we talk about different attitudes. Six elaborates on that because that's why I put the arrow there. Elaborates on that with more examples. But then seven is when we introduce the different senses,
Mm, okay.
right? Because this is a structure question, right?
Yes.
So we want to look at paragraph seven, right?
Okay.
Okay.
The author asserts that each of the five senses is uniquely able to interact with objects that the other senses cannot. Mm, that kind of aligns with that, right? Different senses equal to lead to different relationships to objects. Yeah, I think that kind of aligns with it. It
Okay.
seems too sure though, so I don't know.
Okay.
Produces different interactions with objects than the other senses do. I like that one. That seems a little bit better, to be honest. I mean, yeah, is uniquely able to interact. That kind of throws me off the more again when I read it on answer choice A. So I'm looking B right now. Is no better or worse than the others at producing experiences of objects. I think that seems out of scope. He never really says that it's any better. Like they all just kind of
Mhm.
work in different ways, I guess. Works better than the other senses in different kinds of situations. Yeah, again, I think that seems a little. He's not saying something is better, worse, or so. Yeah, I think I'm B on this one.
Yeah. And so I would say another way that we could have eliminated A is that it's saying that like each of the five senses, like so let's say sight can interact with objects in a way the other senses can't, right?
Yeah.
Which is saying a lot, right? Especially given that we have, this exception here where in dim light you can see something, but you can detect it by echolocation, which is sound, right? So you
Mm,
can use sound and light to, I guess, see this obstacle ahead, right?
yeah.
So that contradicts A because A says that if you can see something, the other senses won't let you like detect or interact with that object, right?
Let me
Because
see if I can.
it says each of the five senses is uniquely able to interact with objects that the other senses cannot. So That means if you see something, you can't use your other senses to interact with that object. And that's saying too much, right? Whereas B just produces different interactions. Um, because it's almost like, okay, A, you could say is saying that they're different, but it kind of goes too far by saying that if one thing does something, the other thing can't. Whereas B just says it's different
Mm. Yep.
without, yeah. So it's not as extreme. And
Yeah, I think that was the word I was trying to say too.
yep, yep.
Yeah, that's the word. Extreme. Which of the following programs would function as the software equivalent of mental paint for a computer? Right. So I think we define mental paint. Yeah, the processes that let us experience things and represent those. I'm like an A. Program that translates inputs
Mhm.
into something that computer can understand and work with. Sounds kind of okay. Uh,
Yeah,
soft.
D is kind of blocked.
Yeah, I'm trying to see.
I can
Uh,
just erase it and bring it back after, but yeah.
okay. A software that utilizes various inputs to provide a user with a multi-dimensional image of their environment. Okay. Quite sure about that. I'm still kind of sticking with A. Software that synchronize a computer's webcam, microphone, and speakers for a user. It talks about the aspects of the experience, but it doesn't really say anything about representing it. So I don't know about C. A spreadsheet program that can collect information from other programs when necessary. That seems more maybe like collect information and then from other programs. Seems also kind of on the line of representation. Doesn't really talk about the processes that go in hand. So really between A and B. Hmm. Yeah, I think I'm going with B because again, its mental paint is more about just experiencing it, but it never really talks about interacting with it. And I don't like that because it says can understand and work with. Um, yeah, we seem to be there seems to be no mention in the mental paint about like interacting with it or something. So I'm really liking B.
Um, so I know I said something earlier from like a previous choice about the interaction part, but I think when we talk about mental paint and we're talking about it's whatever lets us experience things, um, and to represent those experiences, uh, like that movie example in paragraph two.
Yeah.
So, so, okay, so, and also if we're if we're 50-50, we want to look for what, like, we want to like take a microscope and or a magnifying glass and just be like, okay, what is different between A and B? Like, you want to focus on what's different.
Yeah, I think that's what A is because it says we can work with it, but soft B more so says that it takes in everything and shows an image of it.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't B doesn't include the interacting part with it.
Uh-huh. So, what were which choice were you favoring?
I'm still favoring B, more so experiencing it.
So, let's see, right? So, okay, if we look at A and B, there's going to be Okay, so if mental paint is trying to use a different word to describe it. It's like the thing that lets us experience things and represent those experiences, and that it's okay. So between A and B utilizes various inputs to give us some multi-dimensional images of the environment, but A, there's a word in there that can be relevant here, or that really distinguishes it from B.
I guess the understand part, that kind of maybe means experiencing it.
Uh-huh.
Is,
And
is
what
that what you're
about
trying to say?
translates,
Translates.
right?
Hmm.
Because if we're thinking about mental paint for a computer, right? What is the thing that gives the computer the ability to experience things and represent the experiences? So you, as a human, can input things into the computer that the computer can experience and represent that experience, like outputting some stuff that the computer can understand and work with, right? So like mental paint is something that helps us um experience the
Mm,
things and represent the thing. So like the example with the movie, or rather,
right.
yeah. So it's kind of like, so I think A is a better choice because it has the word um translates inputs, because like the computer can't really understand what we're trying to do as our inputs, so it translates it into something that the computer can understand and work with. Whereas B says it's just software that you put in various inputs and it gives the user multi-dimensional images of the environment. If it's the mental paint for the computer, it should help the computer like understand and experience the thing, not necessarily us.
I see the distinction. I
Yeah.
see what you're trying to say. Okay, I guess I was stuck on as the
Yeah.
human aspect.
So
Okay.
like when you're left with two choices, like that's when you just like you really closely look at it and try to separate the two as much as possible. Right? Because if it's 50-50, it's like they're equal in possibly being the answer. So you want to look, okay, how are they different? If they're different, then it's going to go from 50-50 to 51-49 and possibly more. So like I see here that B says software, you put in some inputs and it gives the user some output of images. Sure. But A, we have a program that takes the inputs, translates it into something that the computer can understand and work with. And we want to make sure that we understand the question stem. The question stem is asking, isn't just asking what's the mental pain. It says, what is it for the computer? So
Okay.
it could be easy to think like, because look, this says user, and D, we just know is not going to be it. But
Mm.
I think that the stuff with the user isn't going to be mental paint for the computer. We want the computer to be able to use mental paint to help the computer process uh, what we're inputting, kind of.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's good. Many surgical patients who are near death claim that they have out-of-body experiences, that during surgery, they could feel themselves being operated on and see themselves being operated on as if their eyes were floating above their bodies. Does this experience support the author's argument? Yeah, I don't think this argument, I think it would weaken it, right? I feel like it would weaken it.
Because it's almost like you're watching a movie of yourself, right?
Yeah. You're watching the thing I said where you're watching from like a third person
Yeah,
point
that
of
was
view.
perfect. That was a perfect way of putting it in your own words. Yeah, I didn't say it at the time, but that was a perfect way of uh, you know, conceptualizing it. All right, so now between weakens and disproves.
Oh, whoa. Sorry.
So,
I mean, I'm saying on kind of weakens it because it seems more of like a very specific thing, right? Just a near-death claim. I mean, just surgical patients. And it's also a claim. So how are we so I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know about.
so
I don't think it would disprove it because it doesn't seem so it doesn't feel very substantial because a lot of these points seem very subjective and I don't know if we can I don't know if something like a subjective experience can essentially negate an entire argument, right? You know,
so what I circled is we only have the experience of the thing we experience, the tomato, not the experience of our experience, the film of ourselves. The word
Mhm.
only
So he's very on this, he's very, he has a very like hard
extreme.
stance on it, very hard stance.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like extreme choices generally don't want them to be your answers unless the author's argument is itself extreme.
Okay.
And extreme words are like all, none, only.
Okay.
Because that word only, if he didn't have the word only, right? Sure, we could say that it weakens it. But if he says only, right, you need just one counterexample to disprove it, right? Right?
Yeah.
If I said to do well on the MCAT, you want to uh do well in cars. That's that's a statement, okay? Um Now if I said if you want to do well on the MCAT, you only need to do well in cars, right? The original statement, if you want to do well on the MCAT, you need to do well in cars. That's no like people can argue for it, they can argue against it. They could say, okay, you don't have to do well in cars, you could do well in the other sections, or they could say, yeah, you have to do well in cars, but you also want to do the other sections. But since
Yeah.
I'm not using the word only, it invites those other, those other interpretations that are not arguing
Mm.
against or for it. But if I said the only way to get good at the MCAT is by doing cars, you just need one person who does well on the MCAT in a section that isn't cars. That already disproves it. It doesn't just weaken it, it
Mm.
disproves it.
Okay. I see what you're
So,
saying. For example, okay.
yeah. So
Yeah.
this was,
Also,
yeah.
I also feel like in addition to the only thing, I mean, I guess we
Mhm.
could even say, could we also say it disapproves? Because we also even put that in our main idea, right? We cannot experience the experience,
Yeah, you're right.
right? That's a
Yeah,
good thing. We cannot, yeah.
cannot. Because yeah, it
Yeah.
could have said, we may not,
Yeah.
or
We might not.
yeah, but cannot.
It's a very
That's
strict
a
thing.
different thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I saw that in my idea. I didn't need that. Okay.
Yep,
Good
yep,
point though.
yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, this is probably like one of the hardest passages I've seen. But you know, I guess like the main lesson here is just that if you see something really, really hard, it's okay. Just go at it and try your best. And that's pretty much what we did. And and you saw like even me, like, I've done like a billion of these passages. Like I'm was the same as you. Like I was like, okay, I don't really understand this, don't really understand that, blah blah blah. Thankfully it gave us author opinions. That really, really helped a lot. But still it was really tough. So, but
Okay.
yeah, yeah, we still got through it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think also I'm noticing too, like what
Hmm.
you said early in our session,
Hmm.
that I've been like I'm not comprehending as I'm reading. I'm waiting till the end of the sentence to comprehend.
Hmm.
So I was kind of noticing that a lot today. So that's something, yeah, that's something that I definitely feel like I need to work on, but not really quite. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
just
I think you were working on
practice.
it just fine here because you weren't like you were going really, really slow and you were thinking about every word, that you read. So I think that you were doing that. Like obviously, like, you're aware of it now, so you can incorporate that into the card stuff that you do, from this point on. But yeah, I think you did a great job. I think that this is a good example of a really difficult passage with quite difficult questions. And but we made it through it. So
Yeah, it's the most important thing. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And it's not representative of like all the other passages. So, it's good to every once in a while have a really, really tough passage to just kind of exercise like what to do. Like, is it gonna make you like freak out? Is it gonna, you know, just I guess how to handle it. Um,
Okay.
because we can practice as much as we can, but there could still be just stuff that are crazy like this one.
Okay. And last question, how would you say like the um just the highlighting portion? Because I feel like sometimes I just get so into it and I'm just not like I'm just like yeah, like highlighting and
Okay.
whatnot.
Yeah,
I
so
kind of get lost in that, and I think that's kind of affecting my understanding to some degree. And I'm like, I don't know if I should start thinking about maybe not even highlighting at all.
yeah, so we can like you can look at the highlights and just see how it functions like the map does. Um, so like, you know, for any given paragraph here, right? It's like uh, directly aware representations of our experiences, and then these are examples, and then, you know, this is experience that only involves blah blah blah, and we just put that in, and then I guess like this may not even be like a good example because there's tons of things that I highlighted here that I didn't put in the
Yeah.
map
Yeah.
because this was just a crazy passage. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
but I would say for the other passages that you have the screenshots of, like look
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
screenshots of what I highlight and look at how that relates to the map. Because what I do with the highlights is like I'm not highlighting like sentences or like a lot of times like not even like verbs a lot, like mostly nouns because I'm filling in the grammatical stuff in my head. So yeah, this is not a good example, but look at the other ones that we did and just look at
Okay.
my highlights and look at how they relate to what's in the map. And then you can kind of compare it to your highlights. And, maybe next time we do this, like we can have you do the highlights or something like that. Um, oh, and then I guess for this one, like I intended on having you do the map, but this was just a crazy passage, so I ended up doing it.
Yeah, we would
Yeah,
have. I
basically
think we
like
would have got all those wrong if I did a math.
well, like the math
Uh,
wasn't even like that useful for this one because this is just a crazy pass. But I would say, yeah, like so it probably won't be like the next like two times, but the next time we do cars, you'll be the one who highlights and writing the map. And then at the very, very end, I can maybe, or at least, or either at the very end or after, I can show you what I would highlight, and then we can do a comparison that way.
okay.
So, like, but I would say, like, in the meantime, to just look at the screenshots and look at the highlights that way. But yeah, but ultimately, don't worry too much about highlighting. Just get your map
Mm,
in, get your main idea in, and that's really the important part. Like the highlights aren't that important.
okay. And last question. Sorry. I'm gonna be doing these mapping like on like the exam, right? You want me to continue to do the mapping and like writing it out, or is it gonna become to a point where I do a mental map?
Yeah, you'll probably get to the point where, like, so for me, like when I would do a passage like this, like I would like jot some stuff down, but it's like since we're practicing on like all these things in our brain, like we're practicing like, okay, reading actively, understanding what we're reading as we're reading it, and then at the end of the paragraph, we just organize our thoughts and we figure out what we want to put in our map, and then we write it down. With enough practice, you'll do all of that. So by the time you start writing something down, you will have already in your brain organized the thought. And so it can turn into that. So like for me, like if I were to write the stuff down myself, it would be like I would start writing like don't have experience of of the experience, and I would like probably halfway into that be like, okay, I understand it, and I would move on. So I would
Mm,
probably just write less, but
okay.
only because I've internalized the stuff that you do before you write it down. So with enough practice, you're gonna get to that point.
But I see what you're saying. It's the more practice we do, the essentially
Mhm.
we're our comprehension is just getting much better. Okay.
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay. So you think I'm okay paying you the 150?
Uh, we went a bit over if that's okay, but we could do that.
Because I mean, I think we started at 620 though, right?
Um,
I mean, I can pay the next, like, what is it? 10, I guess we were here for what, 2 hours and 10 minutes, I guess.
yeah, the counter that I have is like 2 hours 14, but I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it could do the 10, so like it'll just be 162.
Okay.
All right, and yes, in the spreadsheet for tomorrow, I wrote down Jack Weston content diagnostic and section
Whoa.
bank. Yeah, for you.
Stop sharing my screen. Okay, so I can look at it. Yeah, Jack Weston, AMC section banks. Okay.
Yeah, maybe I'll
Sure.
put Jack Weston like on Sunday too, just in case, it takes longer. Um, if it doesn't, then you could just, put the section bank thing there. But yeah, and then so when we meet on Monday, I mean, what am I talking about? When we meet on
Wednesday.
Wednesday, we'll go over all that conceptual stuff. And then when we meet on Friday, we'll go over like conceptual stuff and like section bank stuff.
Okay. And I also want to have like a last thing. I think we should probably have a long session too. Yeah, for the exam too. Just so like we can hopefully spend some time and then we can review these exams. But
Yep.
all right, Shane, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Awesome. So yeah, I will see you on